Hi everyone, Jordan here from Ferrets Art Studios. I am so excited to say that this is our second part of my marine creatures and flowers paintings. No surprise here, it's another octopus because for some reason I'm obsessed with them. The next one I'm gonna not do an octopus and I will do something different. But this time I have another octopus painting. Um, I am using my Liquitex acrylic paints and I am applying it to Frederick's canvas. The dimensions are 18 by 24. I hope you guys enjoy.
So I'm sure you guys have noticed that my background is the same as most of my paintings have been recently. But right now I'm just trying to experiment with a bunch of different kinds of ways that I can manipulate this technique of making a background. Um, this time I wanted to do a fade from light on the edges to a fade into kind of a darker color. And so what I did was I used purple and red and just a tiny bit of black on the edges of my canvas, and then as the as I went into the center I used black and blue, and then I still pulled in some of the purple, but I didn't do as much purple. And actually what I had to do was do the red part first, let it dry, and then do the blue part. If I just tried to do it all in one go, I would have probably got um, some muddy colors just because of the streaks of blue going into the wet streaks of red, and just from my hair dryer just pushing around the paint, it would just really it would mix the colors together and it would create a mud, which is not what I'm going for. I want a nice fade in, which I think I achieved with this painting. Um, with the rose, you probably saw that I just used one straight up color for the base, and then what I started to do was actually do my shadows, and I kind of used my shadows to outline the petal that was ahead of it, and then I was able to put on my highlights. So what I have been doing with this rose is taking my liner brushes and doing my shadows, and then taking a filbert brush and smoothing it out. And this took many layers to do, but I actually really think that it's really worth it to just take things slow and be able to different like be able to tell what your values are in your drawing or whatever you are doing with art. I decided to only record two parts of me doing the roses because I just didn't really want to spend so much time recording a dozen roses. So I decided to do one light, which was the one that I did before this one, and then I decided to do one that was kind of a deeper color. I just have two different kinds of contrast going on, and I also kind of wanted to get a little bit more practice with doing them before I started recording, just because I'm actually not all that good with flowers. And it was just because it was something I never really practiced in high school or with drawing in general. I always was trying to draw people back in junior high, and um, I drew a lot of wolves in high school as well. So I find it kind of funny that now that I have progressed so much with my artwork, I haven't really done a wolf drawing. I have, but I haven't really done many. Like, I used to have them in my sketchbook all the time in junior high, but now I kind of have branched off of those, and I've been doing things that I am not really all that comfortable with. For example, the roses. And this painting actually has a full dozen roses. So I decided to do the majority of them and get a feel for how I was going to do them so I can basically whiz through the two that I was going to record and not have to worry about making so many mistakes. Sorry about that. I usually have my phone off or on silent during this time. Um, so, what I am doing with the rose is actually like you might notice in the creases, I get very dark in the like center of the rose, and any of the folds I find had very high contrast. So, but you'll notice that I am actually not really outlining my petals. If I was outlining it, it would have a very, very cartoony feel. What I am doing with it is highlighting and shading. My pencil lines is what my outline was, and then I took those pencil lines and completely masked them with my paint. And basically, I was able to sculpt something that was much more lifelike from my simplistic pencil outline to something that is way more 3D.
I find that a lot of people that are just starting out with painting or drawing, um, they have a hard time making things more 3D because they don't know when to stop. I guess this more applies to drawing, or painting, I mean, completely different topic, painting. Um, this applies to painting. Is I find that a lot of new artists just don't know when to stop and let the paint dry. And I find that that's one of the biggest keys in making a good painting is you just have to keep on letting it layer. And if you don't let your paint dry and you just continuously try to add on layers, then the your layers are just going to start to blend together, and they're not going to glaze on top of each other because the paint previously is still wet. So you're just going to start smearing it around with your paintbrush. So if you actually wait for the paint to dry and then put on your darker color or lighter color, then it's going to show up a lot better than just waiting 2 minutes for your paint to like dry just on the surface. You could still run into issues just by letting it dry for a few minutes. I usually let it dry for at least 15 to 20 because then I can safely put on my next layer of paint without really having to worry about the paint underneath lifting at all. A lot of thought went into the color scheme of this painting. I made lots of color swatches, and what I mean by that is I have a bunch of scrap of something called illustration board, and I just have a bunch of it cut into strips. And what I do is I take the color that I mixed, paint it onto the illustration board, wait for it to dry, and then I just hold it up to my painting and decide if I want this color in my painting or not. If you have Photoshop, you can always upload a photo into Photoshop and kind of figure out your color scheme from there. But if you don't have Photoshop, this is a very cheap way to kind of get around trying to find out what you want your color scheme to be. And I think it works just as fine. The only thing that Photoshop kind of does is that you can actually edit in what you want to see that color as. Like, let's say if I wanted to see if the yellow of or the eye of the octopus, I wanted to see if it would look good as yellow. Then I could just upload this picture onto uh, a photo editing program, and I guess I mean Photoshop, and basically just edit in the eyeball as yellow and kind of decide what color I want from there. Um, but what I did was just quite simply paint it onto a different piece of paper, hold it up to my painting, and decide if that color looks right with the colors I already have on my canvas. Um, for some reason, I really wanted to make something in this painting yellow. You can see I actually did ignore my color swatch for a moment, and I did paint the eyeball this like pastel-y orange, and I just hated it. I thought it didn't pop out at all, so I kind of jump forward a little bit so you don't have to see me fixing anything like that, because I just wanted I found that the eye looked way better if it was blue. So I just quickly, after it was dry, I just quickly mixed up the color that I have for the suction cups, and I put that in the eye instead, and I think that worked out a lot more. Um, I really wanted to put yellow in this painting. There was no way that it was going to work out. But overall, I think the blue works out a lot better. It kind of keeps this nice balance between cool and warm in this painting. So that's why I decided to go with.
So what I had to do with the octopus was I had to get multiple reference photos for my drawing, because the main one I was using for my reference photo was cut off just a few of the tentacles, so I had to find two other photos that I can use to add in a few extra tentacles into my painting. I could have probably just freehanded everything, but then things wouldn't look as realistic, and I that was what I was going for in this painting, so I wanted to make sure that I had something to look at and go off of for reference. And the tentacles were what took the most time for painting. Just going through and doing each individual suction cup, and making sure that they looked round, and all the blending for um, each individual suction cup was just, it took a very long time. I think I counted, there's probably around 500 suction cups on this octopus. So it took a quite a long time, but I wanted to make the suction cups look a little bit bigger than what was in the reference photo, because I wanted the octopus seem like it was more giant rather than small. So I thought that if I emphasized the suction cups a little bit more, then it would help him look like he was a little bit bigger itself. I found that most of my colors that I used in the octopus was mostly just leftover colors from the roses, and I probably just lightened up some extra colors that were left over, just so I wasn't wasting a lot of paint. I had actually lots of extra paint left over from all the roses, so I decided to just take some white to some of the darker colors and add them into this painting. Um, like for the bottom parts of the tentacles where the suction cups are was kind of where I used my deeper wine red colors from some of the darker roses, and the like actual light pink parts are from the lighter roses, of course. I didn't use a lot of that primary red. I really wanted to. I planned to use some of it throughout the octopus because I just thought that it added such a vibrancy to the roses. But I just never really found the place to put it. I just didn't find it really appropriate in a lot of the spots on the octopus, but I did add just a tiny bit in here and there. I think I mostly just added it in around the eye and a little bit in the like deeper purpley colors of the tentacles. Um, all what I really mixed for this octopus was the color for the suction cups. I did kind of this minty blue color for the suction cups that were really highlighted in the light, and then I did this kind of violet-ish color for the ones that were kind of casted in shadow. I'm not going to show me painting all of the tentacles just because I think it's a little bit of rinse, wash, and repeat. But basically what I did was I went in just with a liner brush and I did a line of a highlight, and then I took a filbert and blended it in. Getting a close-up on the eye right now, basically all I did was took that lavender color for the suction cups as well as the mint color, and yeah, I basically just highlighted the spots of the eye that I thought was going to be lighter, and then I put the lavender in for shadows in the eye. And then for the pupil, I actually just did uh, a purple pupil. And then once it was dried, I went over it with a darker blue, and that's kind of where I left the pupil because I didn't want it to look straight up flat black. Bubbles are usually just something I put in for a filler, so I'm just going to add in a few of these. I'll explain a little bit more of those in the future.
That is it for this video. I really hope you guys enjoyed. I think our next one is going to actually be a graphite drawing. Just because I want to switch it up every now and then, and I haven't really done a graphite drawing since I got out of college. So I kind of want to do one of those again. But yeah, if you guys enjoyed this video, you can hit that subscribe button and you'll be notified right when the next video is uploaded. Besides that, you can follow me on a few social media platforms. I'll leave the links down in the description for you guys. And I'll also leave a link in the description for my website so you can head on over there as well. Besides that, I hope you guys have a wonderful day. See you next time.